All right, everyone, welcome back to the classroom. Settle in, grab your notebooks. Today is a big one.
It really is.
If you look at the syllabus for the history of spaceflight, there are certain chapters that, they define a generation. We had Mercury 7, Apollo, the first shuttle flight.
Mm-hmm.
And today we're opening the book on the next major chapter.
That's right. Today we are conducting a deep dive lesson on Artemis II, and we're framing this whole discussion as the final exam.
The final exam, I like that.
Because before we can, return humans to the surface of the moon, we have to pass this specific test.
And as any student knows, sometimes the exam schedule gets pushed back. So, before we get into the flight plan, we have to address the elephant in the room.
Or rather, the rocket on the pad.
Exactly. It is February 2026, and the original plan was to see this mission launch this month. But we have some breaking news from Kennedy Space Center that, well, it changes the timeline.
It does. Just yesterday, February 2nd and 3rd, the teams in Florida were conducting a wet dress rehearsal.
Okay, so for those in the back of the class, what does that mean exactly? Wet dress rehearsal.
It's the final practice run. I mean, they do everything short of actually igniting the engines. They roll out the crawler, power up the avionics, and most importantly, they load the propellant.
That's the wet part of the rehearsal.
That's the wet part. And this is where things went a bit sideways. The test was terminated at T-minus 5 minutes and 15 seconds.
And the culprit was, let me guess,
Once again, the nemesis of modern rocketry.
liquid hydrogen.
Liquid hydrogen.
We see this come up constantly with the Space Launch System, the SLS. Why is this specific fuel source such a headache for the engineers?
It really just comes down to physics. Hydrogen is the lightest, the smallest molecule in the universe.
Right.
And to keep it liquid, you have to chill it to minus 423 degrees Fahrenheit. So you have this incredibly cold, incredibly tiny molecule that just wants to turn back into a gas and escape.
It's the Houdini of chemical elements.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
If there's a microscopic gap in a seal, hydrogen will find it.
And that is exactly what happened. They detected a leak at the tail service mast umbilical.
Yep, that's the connection point at the base of the rocket that feeds the fuel in. And you can't mess around with a hydrogen leak. It's highly flammable.
Of course.
If you have a leak near the pad and then you ignite those solid rocket boosters,
Yeah.
well, you don't have a mission anymore. You have a very, very large firework.
So the decision was made to scrub. What does this mean for the launch schedule?
It means we are entering a delay period. A February launch is officially off the table. NASA has confirmed we are looking at a delay to no earlier than March 2026.
So they have to roll it back.
They either need to get back to the vehicle assembly building or try to fix it right there at the pad, swap out those seals, and then retest everything.
It's frustrating for us watching, but safety has to be the absolute priority.
Always.
So while the engineers are turning wrenches in Florida, let's use this time to study exactly what they're preparing to launch. Because this isn't just some joyride. This is a 10-day test flight with very specific objectives.
The primary objective is validation. This is the first crewed mission of the Artemis program. We flew Artemis Ahest without a crew, and it went well, but putting humans on board just changes the calculus entirely.
It really does. I want to make sure everyone understands the stakes here. They aren't landing on this trip.
Yeah.
They aren't walking on the surface. They are flying a massive figure-8 loop around the moon and coming straight back.
Think of it as the human in the loop exam. We have to prove that the life support, the manual controls, the waste management, the radiation shielding, that it all actually works when there are 4 living, breathing people inside.
And they are doing this on top of the most powerful rocket NASA has ever built.
The SLS. It stands 322 feet tall.
To give you a sense of scale, that's taller than the Statue of Liberty.
And when it clears the tower, it's generating 8.8 million pounds of thrust. It's a staggering piece of engineering, a skyscraper that flies.
If you are enjoying this video, please watch it until the end. It helps the channel a lot and encourages us to continue our work.
So let's move to section 1 of our lesson, the hardware, specifically the chariot and the shield.
The chariot being the Orion spacecraft, this specific capsule has been named Integrity, which I think is a great name, given the pressure, literally and metaphorically, that it's under.
It is. And the primary job of Integrity is life support. The first time this hardware has to keep 4 people alive in deep space.
And alive is a complex requirement, right?
It's very complex. It has to scrub carbon dioxide, which becomes toxic very quickly in a small space. It has to generate oxygen, maintain pressure, and do all of this for 10 days without a single failure.
But the biggest concern isn't necessarily the air inside, it's the heat on the outside. we need to talk about the heat shield controversy.
We do. After the uncrewed Artemis I mission returned, engineers inspected the heat shield, that's the ablative material on the bottom that burns away to protect the capsule.
And they found something they didn't expect.
They did. They called it char loss.
In simple terms, chunks of the heat shield material broke off in a way the computer models didn't predict.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Instead of a smooth erosion, it looked a bit like a cratered moonscape in certain spots. And this presented a massive dilemma.
So you're the engineer in charge. What do you do?
You have two choices. Choice A, you tear the heat shield off, redesign it, build a new one. That guarantees safety, but it delays the entire moon program by, maybe 2 or 3 years?
Or choice B?
Or choice B, you analyze the data, you look at the margins, and you fly with the shield you have.
And NASA chose B.
They chose B. And this is a brilliant teaching moment about critical thinking in engineering. It wasn't a reckless decision. They ran thousands of simulations. They determined that even with the char loss, there's enough material left to protect the crew.
But they didn't just cross their fingers and hope for the best.
No, they changed the variables. They changed the flight plan. They're going to use a different reentry trajectory, which we'll get into, to minimize the time the capsule spends in that peak heat environment.
So they're managing a hardware risk with a software solution.
That's it, exactly. It's a calculated bet on the math.
So let's look at the people who are trusting their lives to that math. Section 2. The crew.
The 4 individuals sitting in that capsule, each of them represents a very specific skill set needed to pass this exam.
Let's run through the roster. First, the commander, Reed Wiseman.
Wiseman is the leader. He's a veteran, served on the ISS. His job is the big picture. If communications go down, if there's a crisis, he is the final authority on board.
Sitting next to him, the pilot, Victor Glover.
An incredible aviator. Glover is making history as the first person of color to travel around the moon. But his role is crucial. He's the one monitoring systems, and he'll be the one manually flying the spacecraft during that proximity demo. He's the hands-on flyer.
Now we have mission specialist Christina Koch.
The engineer. She holds the record for the longest single spaceflight by a woman, 328 days.
Wow.
That experience is a huge asset. She knows how the human body reacts to long-term microgravity better than almost anyone. She'll be the first woman to travel around the moon.
And if something breaks, she's the one who has to fix it.
She's the one. And finally, mission specialist Jeremy Hansen.
The Canadian.
The Canadian. This is a very significant addition. Hansen is the first non-American to ever leave low Earth orbit. It signals a real shift from the Apollo era, which was a nationalistic race, to the Artemis era, which is an international coalition.
There's a really human detail about Hansen that I love. He talked about his parents bracing for liftoff with him, and he mentioned his first day of school he carried a Star Wars lunchbox.
And now he's actually going. It reminds us that they are, in the best sense of the word, guinea pigs. They're testing the radiation shelter, the exercise equipment. They're verifying that humans can function in this vehicle.
Okay, class, let's turn the page to section 3. The flight plan. The 10-day itinerary. It's not just a straight shot to the moon, is it?
Not at all. It is a highly choreographed dance. Phase 1 is the high Earth orbit checkout.
So they don't leave Earth immediately.
No, they spend the first 24 hours orbiting Earth in a huge ellipse, going out as far as 44,000 miles and then coming back close.
This is the kick the tires phase.
Exactly. If the life support is glitchy or the toilet breaks or some other problem comes up, they're still close enough to Earth to abort and come home quickly.
Smart. And during this phase, they do the proximity operations demonstration. This is where Victor Glover gets to work.
That's right. They detach from the upper stage of the rocket, the ICPS. Then they turn the Orion capsule around 180 degrees and fly back toward that spent rocket stage.
So Glover is flying it manually.
He is, inching up to the target and then backing away. They aren't docking with it.
Not on this mission.
Not on this one.
Yeah.
But on Artemis III and III, crews will need to dock with the Starship lander or the Gateway Space Station. You have to prove the pilot can handle the ship manually. This is the practice run.
Okay, so once they pass that test, they move to phase 2, translunar injection.
The TLI burn, this is the big one. The engine firing that breaks them out of Earth's gravity well.
Yeah.
And this is where the mission planning is just incredibly smart about safety. They're flying a free return trajectory.
I love this concept. It's the ultimate safety net. Explain how that works.
Essentially, they aim the ship so that the moon's gravity captures them, slings them around the backside.
And shoots them right back toward Earth.
Exactly. The beauty of this is that once the TLI burn is done, they don't even need an engine to get home. Gravity does all the work.
So even if the main engine fails completely on the way to the moon, they aren't stranded.
Nope. Newton's laws will bring them home. It's a gravity-assisted boomerang.
So they coast for about 4 days, and then we hit phase 3, the flyby.
They go to the far side of the moon, and they aren't skimming the craters. They are flying 4,600 miles beyond the far side.
Which sets a new record.
It does. This will be the farthest any human has ever been from Earth. They'll beat the record set by the Apollo 13 crew back in 1970.
And the view. What will that view be like?
NASA described it. From their window, the moon will look like a basketball held at arm's length. It'll be huge. And Earth.
Just a tiny marble.
A small blue marble, 250,000 miles away in the background. That perspective shift. It's what they call the overview effect, but on steroids.
While they're out there having this profound experience, they also have homework to do. Section 4. Science and communication.
They do. They're turning the capsule into a lab. They have some very futuristic experiments. One is called AVATAR.
Sounds like a movie.
It's an acronym. A virtual astronaut tissue analog response. They're testing organ-on-a-chip devices.
Organ on a chip.
Yes, small chips with human cells that mimic organs, like hearts or lungs. They want to see how deep space radiation affects human tissue directly.
They're also testing their own biology, collecting blood and saliva samples.
Right. We know spaceflight suppresses the immune system. We need to know exactly how much and how quickly. I mean, if we're sending people to Mars for 3 years, they need to be able to fight off a common cold.
And they're deploying some smaller satellites, too?
Correct. CubeSats, shoebox-sized satellites hitching a ride. We have Techels from Germany and Titina from Argentina, all studying radiation and space weather.
Let's talk communication. How do we see what they're doing?
We aren't relying on grainy black and white TV anymore. They're testing the O2O system, optical communication.
Lasers.
Lasers. Instead of just radio waves, they're beaming data back on lasers, which means huge bandwidth.
So, high-def video.
High-def 4K video streams from the moon. For us back in the classroom, the experience of watching this is going to be incredibly clear.
Except for one specific moment, the blackout.
Yes, when they slip behind the far side of the moon itself physically blocks the line of sight to Earth. For about 30 to 50 minutes, they will be completely alone.
No signal, no voice from mission control.
Just the four of them and the dark side of the moon. It's a planned silence, but historically that is always the most tense time. You just have to wait.
Assuming the physics holds up, they pop out on the other side and begin the journey home. Section 5, the return. This is the hardest question on the final exam.
Reentry. This is where the spacecraft hits the atmosphere. And because they're coming from the moon, they are moving much, much faster than from the space station.
How fast are we talking?
They hit the upper atmosphere at 25,000 miles per hour. That's about 32 times the speed of sound. It's the fastest reentry ever for a crewed mission.
And speed creates heat.
A lot of heat. Friction generates plasma. The temperature outside will reach 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit, half the temperature of the surface of the sun.
And this is where that heat shield, with the Charloffs we talked about, faces its ultimate test.
And this is where they use the skip entry maneuver.
Software solution.
That's the one. Instead of diving straight into the thick atmosphere, which would sustain that heat for a long time, they do a skip. They dip in, bounce off it slightly like a stone on a pond, back towards space.
Which scrubs off speed and lets it cool for a moment.
Exactly. It dissipates heat before they dive in for the final descent. It also lets them steer the landing point more precisely.
And finally, splashdown.
Parachutes, Pacific Ocean, off the coast of San Diego. The U.S. Navy will be waiting to pick them up.
And just like that, the 10-day lesson is over.
If they splash down safely, they pass the exam. And that clears the way for Artemis III, the landing mission.
Let's wrap up with the big picture. When we look at Artemis II, it's hard not to compare it to Apollo 8 in 1968.
It's the closest historical parallel. 1968 was an incredibly difficult year. Assassinations, war, protests. The country felt like it was tearing itself apart.
And then at Christmas, Apollo 8 circled the moon.
And they showed us Earthrise, that beautiful blue marble rising over the dead lunar landscape. It didn't solve the political problems, but it saved the spirit of that year. It gave people something to look up to.
2026 has its own challenges. It's a polarized time. The question is, can Artemis II have that same unifying effect?
That's the hope. But beyond the symbolism, the so what of this lesson is practical. This isn't just a sightseeing tour.
This is the blueprint for Mars.
Precisely. Every system tested on this flight, the radiation shelter, the life support, the laser comms, this is the technology we need to survive a 3-year trip to the Red Planet. The moon is the proving ground. It's the classroom where we learn how to live off-planet.
So as we watch this mission unfold, hopefully in March, we need to remember that we're watching the first steps of a much longer journey.
And it forces us to ask, when you look back at that marble-sized Earth from 250,000 miles away, do national borders matter? Do our daily squabbles matter? Or do we just see one planet, one crew?
That is a question for every student to ponder. We'll be tracking the repairs on that liquid hydrogen leak closely. As soon as NASA announces a new launch date, we'll update the class.
Let's hope for a leak-free tanking test next time.
Fingers crossed. Class dismissed. Wait, one last thing before you pack up. If the listeners enjoyed the lesson, they can subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell to be informed about new videos, press the like button, and share the video with colleagues, as this helps us maintain the channel. Thank you.